So thanks for joining us to hear about the Creative Advantage today and the roster application process. You are here to listen to and learn and contribute to the Creative Advantage, which cares about arts education access for all young people in Seattle, specifically Seattle Public Schools. This is an initiative that was started 9 years ago now as a collective impact model. Many cities at the time were approached through the Wallace Foundation to consider ways that arts partners and cultural partners and community artists, teaching artists could support more equitable arts education in public schools. There's tons of research that talks about why arts education matters. Some of that research talks about the connection to education justice overall, which is something I care a lot about. Creative Advantage cares about a lot. Some of that research talks about how arts learning supports, more engaged learning, increased academic success, school retention, college enrollment, civic engagement, all the things you learn in the arts beyond art skills, like what they might call 21st century skills, like collaboration, creativity, critical thinking. SEL stands for social and emotional learning. All of that is important. And we know that young people don't have equal access necessarily to arts education in Seattle Public Schools, despite this initiative, and nationally. In Seattle Public Schools, we know that race, family, income, and home language, like ELL kind of status, if you're an English language learner, are actually the three greatest predictors of whether or not a young person has access to arts education, which is unfair. And that's based on systemic flaws and racism and classism. We're really trying to combat that. Seattle Public Schools has some arts expansion goals that the Creative Advantage is trying to help solve. They really want to make sure that there's high quality arts instruction in every arts discipline, that there's like instruction from certified arts teachers during the day, but with support from community-based organizations and teaching artists. And that's where y'all come into play here. The Creative Advantage is focused on that arts instruction in schools. And we've been rolling out this initiative school pathway by school pathway. So like neighborhood school pathway by neighborhood school pathway. And we're in 82 schools right now of 106 schools in Seattle Public Schools. And we'll be rolling out to the remainder. We've been paused on expansion through this COVID time, but we'll be expanding into the remaining schools next year and beyond. And community arts partnerships are a huge part of that. And professional development, that's joint professional development between teaching artists and community artists and school day teachers is a big part of that. And evaluation of everything all together. Community arts partnerships are really key. My background is as a theater teaching artist, as an arts administrator and nonprofit, community arts person through Arts Corps, where I worked for a long time, more than 15 years. I know that, the role of community arts partners are really critical to young people and to like our community overall. Within schools, arts partnerships increase student access to the arts. They enhance and broaden students' arts opportunities. They're learning art forms that they may not have represented in their school from teaching artists and community arts people that they wouldn't necessarily have access to in general. And they provide really critical multicultural and culturally relevant learning experiences for young people. So there are two ways that arts partners collaborate with schools through the Creative Advantage. One is through individual teaching artists or community orgs doing arts residencies for students, and those can look two different ways. One could be through integrated arts, an integrated arts residency where maybe you're bringing an art form into a different subject area like theater into social studies or history or visual art in math, right? You're moving into or bringing your skills into a different subject area. Or it could just be cultural arts, a residency for students that's really bringing something different, like we've done break dance or ballet through a gym class or something like that, or bringing drumming instruction into a music class because the music teacher doesn't feel like they have that background and they really want young people to be able to learn about African percussion or drumline or something like that. The other way that partners work through this program is to do professional development for teachers. So if that's something you've done before and you would like to do more of, we really focus on ways that this program or community arts partners can support, teachers and principals and schools to use the arts in their schools more often in different ways. And so if that's something you're into, you could apply for that as well. So some of the benefits of being on the Creative Advantage roster, I mean, the key one is that first bullet point. This is sort of a vetting for who can teach and be compensated through the Creative Advantage. So a big part of this project is that the city ponies up some funding for the schools to partner with Creative Advantage partners or to bring in more arts partnerships. So every school receives $15,000 in seed money. Those schools go through a pathway arts team process where they are looking at racial equity gaps and other kinds of equity gaps in who's participating in the arts. And they decide how they want to spend their initial $15,000, like what kinds of gaps they're seeing, who's participating, who isn't. And then they go to our roster to try to find some partners to help fill some of those gaps. After schools use up their initial $15,000 investment, there's sustainability funds for partners and schools to apply for. They're non-competitive grants. We just hold money. All you have to do is prove that you have an intention to work together, and either the partner can apply for that money or the school can apply for that money. And those might be like up to like $10,000 a year kind of grants, between $5,000 and $10,000, depending on the school racial justice index of like what kinds of students go there. We offer more money to schools that are working with more diverse and more low income students. So that's a big benefit. Schools and arts teams are learning how to bring in partners. They go through an extensive training and planning phase with coaches, arts coaches who are principals from other schools that have had the Creative Advantage already. They're getting sort of mentored in how to be more arts rich schools. And then they're looking for partners on the roster. So you get your own profile on the roster. You get to sort of advertise yourself and what you do or what your organization does to the school community. And then we actively promote this roster and the teaching artists and the groups that are on it out to the schools repeatedly and to other youth serving agencies as well. We've become known or seen as a spot to look, right, for great creative youth development folks. We do a lot of professional learning and networking events that are joint for district partners and community partners. So it's great to be able to participate in those. And we do a lot of research annually about what's happening in Creative Advantage classrooms and their projects and how that's supporting Seattle Public Schools. This opportunity is open to teaching artists, to arts orgs, to cultural institutions, to lead arts residencies. The criteria is that we're hoping applicants have 3 or more years of experience teaching art to young people. In a K-12 setting is great, but it could also be after school or in other kinds of community-based programs. That you have experience, if you want an integrated arts work, that you have some experience doing that. It may just be that you're bringing a cultural art form classroom, and that's fine. If you want to be leading professional development for certified teachers and you want to apply for that chunk of this roster application, you should have 3 or more years of experience leading professional development for K-12 teachers. or at least experience integrating and teaching and facilitating with adults. So the questions will reflect those kinds of prompts. You know, even during the past 2 years, which have been crazy, with the pandemic and other things, the Creative Advantage has figured out ways to keep teaching artists teaching and keep supporting teachers and students. We pivoted, I'm so sick of the word pivot, but we pivoted, we shuffled, ball changed, we did a lot to think about how we could move learning online and do professional development for community arts folks about how to teach through teams for students and still be able to be in the classroom. We developed with the Parks Department a program called All Access, which are actually synchronous classes that the Parks Department hosts with Creative Advantage teachers that are open and free to young people everywhere. And the Creative Advantage Online Arts series is a series of videos we made during the pandemic and have posted on YouTube and have posted on the Seattle channel and other places for teachers to use in the classroom. We are emerging back into in-person partnerships, which is exciting. And anybody who wants to work in person in schools would have to show proof of vaccination and do a background check. So these applications are going to be reviewed by an advisory panel of folks who are made up of some partners who are currently on the roster and some Seattle Public School teachers who have utilized arts partners in their classrooms and projects. If you're applying for arts residencies for students, they'll be looking for sort of how you talk about and how you approach your teaching art, your teaching artistry, how you do that work with young people, your experience with culturally responsive teaching practices, and hopefully the ability to work with many different kinds of demographics of young people. Your ability to develop a lesson plan or some sort of sample outline that shows, what your plan is and how you do that in the classroom. And if you need support creating a sample lesson, or a class outline, you can set up a one-on-one mentorship with me before the application deadline, and I'm really happy to help you do that. They'll also be looking to see what kinds of objectives you have in the classroom, what are you trying to teach, how do you assess what you're teaching, your general experience. And we also ask for some work samples that show some previous work you may have done with young people. If you're doing professional development or applying for that, they're going to look for your approach and experience in that regard, and any kind of culturally responsive teaching practices you have. A big goal of Seattle Public Schools, especially at the onset of this initiative, was the ability to foster and support teachers to foster 21st century skills with students in their classroom. So that really means thinking beyond just the art skills themselves to teaching higher order kind of thing, like communication, critical thinking, collaboration, etc. And they'll be looking for, objectives for adult learners, not students, right? If you're going to be doing professional development. And maybe a plan that you've used in the past with adults. Maybe an example of assessment that you've done or a survey from previous adults that you've worked with, anything like that. All right, I've talked a lot. Lizzy, handing it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to come back on camera here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just kind of walk everyone through the process of applying for the Community Arts Partner roster using the application platform Submittable. That is the platform that we use for many of our opportunities. So it's, once you're kind of familiar with it, it can become a resource that you can go back to see other opportunities that the Office of Arts and Culture has open at any given time. There are a few opportunities to, for example, show work at King Street Station or present events at King Street Station. And we also host all of our public art opportunities on that platform. So hopefully the idea is that this will become a place where you can come for it, not just the Creative Advantage opportunity, but for other opportunities in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone. And you'll have to excuse the mini tabs open here.
We won't judge. We don't judge.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So what we're looking at here is the Creative Advantage website, which some of you may already be familiar with. And I'm just going to kind of quickly scroll down. There's some information about the Creative Advantage program here. And there's kind of some general guidelines that you can look through, many of which Tina summarized in the presentation. There is also a link to where you will be able to complete the application on Submittable. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and the page will refresh and you will be taken to our Submittable page. So here you can see right up at the top a reminder of the deadline on March 7th for this particular opening for the roster. And then you'll be able to see the full guidelines for the program. So there's lots of good information here, background on the Creative Advantage program itself, an overview of the eligibility and the timeline for this application opening, a refresher on the application components, the items that you'll either need to speak to or upload as you're applying. Again, another reminder of that application deadline. The review criteria that Tina went through, just some reminders of the things that the review panel will be looking for as they're assessing the applications received. Information about the review process, when you'll hear back about your application. We're currently looking at everyone will receive a notification by late April. And then lastly, information about who to reach out to for assistance. So if you have questions about the Creative Advantage program itself, Tina is your contact. You can find her email address here in the guidelines. You're welcome to reach out to me if you have questions about the kind of technical aspects of using Submittable. I'll be happy to help you with that. And we also have information and links here down at the bottom to Submittable's help platform and Submittable's contact information in case there's an issue that we're not able to help resolve. And there's also an opportunity to sign up for the mailing list so that you receive notification of future opportunities from our office. So once you've kind of skimmed through those guidelines, you'll have two options down here at the bottom. If you already have a Submittable account set up, you can go ahead and sign into that account, or you can click the Create an Account button to set up an account. Once you click that Create an Account button, it's a very simple process. All you need is an email address, your first and last name, and then you'll be prompted to enter a password. That's it. You don't have to provide any other information than that to create your Submittable account. And your Submittable account can be used for any opportunity available on Submittable, whether it's through the Office of Arts and Culture or another agency or program. So I already have an account set up, so I'm going to select that option. And I'll be prompted to sign in. And this is the fun part where I get to see if I remember my password. Okay, success. So the screen will refresh once you've logged in. You'll see kind of the same thing that we just went through previously. So you'll be able to still see those guidelines and instructions if you need to be able to access those again. So I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down the page to the start of the application information. So the first thing you'll be asked to do is provide your address and some contact information, your phone number. If you're an individual teaching artist, that might be your own address or a PO box. If you're applying on behalf of an organization, that can be the address for your organization, your phone number for the organization. Once you've entered that information there, you're just going to click Save Address and Continue. And then we'll end up with the application form itself. So a new feature on Submittable, I think particularly might be helpful for those of you applying on behalf of an organization. If you want to start the application for your organization and then invite other members of your team to collaborate with you on completing the application, you can do that using this Invite Collaborators link up in the kind of right-hand corner there. That will be a way that you can invite your colleagues, your teammates, your collaborators to join you in completing the application. And you'll be able to work on the application simultaneously and see the updates that each of you are making. So that can be an option if you need to kind of divvy things up across a team. You can use that Invite Collaborators feature to do that. So again, you'll see those guidelines again. Just keep scrolling down to get to the application form. So some quick instructions here up at the top about using Submittable. We estimate that this application will take between 1 to 2 hours to complete, depending on kind of what materials you already have available and ready to go. You're welcome to save a draft of the application at any point and come back to it later. You don't have to complete it all in one sitting, so feel free to kind of parcel it out in chunks if that's helpful. For internet browsers, essentially the recommendation is that you use anything other than Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. Firefox, Chrome, Safari all work well and are all available for free if you don't already have one of those options available. And again, some reminders about contact information, and then we get into the application form itself. So this particular application uses some question branching to give you, as the applicant, questions that are relevant to your particular situation. So up here at the top, our very first question will ask you to state whether you're applying as an individual or as an organization. Depending on your choice there, you'll be given slightly different questions that correspond to whether you're an individual or whether you're applying on behalf of an organization. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to go ahead and select individual teaching artist. The same questions are asked, they're just phrased slightly differently. So I'll select that. You'll be asked to give some kind of basic information about either yourself or the organization. So your name, if it's an organization, you'll be asked to also provide the primary contact name for the application, the individual that will kind of be managing the application, address, phone number, and then we just have a question about how you learned about the opportunity. Then you'll get a series of questions that are kind of at a very basic level establish your teaching experience. So the grades that you have experience with, what artistic disciplines you have experience in teaching. I'll call attention to the fact that if you don't see your particular artistic discipline represented, you can select different discipline and you'll be given a space where you can write in any additional categories that aren't captured within this list. And you can select all that apply in here if you are working across disciplines. Lastly, you'll be asked if you have teaching experience with English language learners, teaching students in special education, and as well as whether you or any of the teaching artists working with your organization are graduates of the Washington State TAT Lab. And then we get to the fun stuff. So next up, you'll be asked either to provide a biography of yourself as a teaching artist or an organizational bio or organizational history. You can just copy that or copy paste that right into that box or type it in directly, whatever is easiest for you. There's also some formatting options if you want to break up that text a bit. And then let's see. And then we'll get into the narrative questions. So again, this is another place where there will be some question branching. Depending on whether you'd like to apply to the student residencies, the teacher professional development, or both, you'll get a set of questions for each of those selections. So I'm going to select student residencies, and we'll see those questions pop up. So the first question requests an upload of that sample lesson plan or class outline. You're welcome to use your own document if you like. There's also a link to be able to download a template if that's helpful. You might also want to download the template just to see the information that's asked for in the template. So you, if you're using your own document, you can make sure that that same information is covered there. There's also some information about how we're defining cultural arts or integrated arts residencies, and a reminder that if you are submitting as a provider of both types, that you'll need to submit a lesson plan for each. So here it'll ask you whether you're applying for cultural arts, integrated arts, or you can select both. And then you'll be able to upload your lesson plan or plans depending on your situation. These uploads will allow PDF files only. My contact information is here. If you have any trouble converting your document to a PDF, I'm happy to help. You can just send me a quick email and I'll help you get that file converted. Next up will be those work samples that Tina mentioned. We're asking for each applicant to provide just 1 to 2 work samples total. So we have some information here about how we're breaking those work samples down. So 5 images counts as 1 work sample, 2 minutes of audio counts as a single work sample, 2 minutes of video counts as a single work sample, etc. And we do ask, if you are submitting 2 work samples, that you choose a variety of sample types. So maybe a written work sample plus some images, some audio, and some images, etc. Just so that the reviewers have a mix to see for your samples there. It'll ask you to choose what format you'll be uploading. I'm going to choose both so that we can see both options. For the written or image work samples, there's a reminder about the accepted file types there. PDFs or JPEG or PNG files are accepted for those image or written work samples. And then for any audio or video work samples, you're going to share with us a link to the work sample online. You can put that work sample anywhere you'd like. Whatever works best for you is great. YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, Google Drive are all common places where you can upload that video. The idea is that hopefully that if you don't already have something uploaded, you'll be able to upload your work sample to a place that will then let you reuse. You can reuse that link for multiple opportunities. You're welcome to password protect your video if you'd like, and we have a space, an optional space where you can let us know that password there. We do just ask if you are using password protected links to make sure that you don't change the password before the end of April so that the reviewers still have access to your work samples. And then there will be some space where you can provide a brief description of your audio or video work samples, which actually reminds me, I'm going to go back up here. There's also space to describe your image work samples. When you go ahead and upload your images, you'll be prompted to provide that same descriptive information. And I'm going to go ahead and keep going. There's an option for a second video link if you are sharing to, say, an audio link and a video link. There's an option to provide a second link as well. And then we're on to the narrative questions. So we give you a link to a glossary, if you'd like, that includes some helpful definitions for how we're using some of the terminology in these questions. There's a character counter below each text box there, so you can kind of track where you are in the maximum number of characters allowed. And again, there's some formatting options if that's helpful for you to be able to kind of break up the text, bold certain things, etc. You can use bullet points as well. And I'm going to keep going. So there are 6 of those questions for the student residencies. 2 of them, one is for integrated arts and one is for cultural residencies. If you're applying for both types of residencies, you would answer both questions. If you're only applying for one of those 2 types, you can answer one or the other, depending on which type you want to be considered for. If you have selected the professional development option, you'd also see the narrative questions for those professional development to be considered for professional development for teachers as well. The last section of the application is a series of demographic questions. This is another section that will display slightly differently depending on whether you're applying as an individual or as an organization. There's different sets of questions depending on the circumstance. All of these questions are entirely optional and none of your responses will be seen by the reviewers. They'll be viewable only by staff and only at the group level. So your individual level responses won't be seen. We'll just be looking at all of the responses from all applicants as a group. We do encourage you to answer as many of the questions as you feel comfortable and able to do so. It's really helpful for us in our assessment work to ensure that our outreach is reaching diverse teaching artists and diverse organizations. But again, optional, entirely up to you, and none of that information will be shared with the review panel or impact your application in any way. And then down at the bottom, there's some information about what to do next. You can either save your draft of your application to come back to later, or if you're ready to apply, you'll simply click this apply button here and you'll receive a notification, an emailed notification letting you know that your application has been successfully submitted and received. If you don't see that emailed notification within about, say, 10 minutes or so, double check your spam or your junk mail folder. Occasionally those notifications get routed there as opposed to being directed to your inbox. So I know that was a lot of information to cover. So I'll pause for a second just to see if anyone has any questions about using Submittable or kind of anything that we looked at here in the application form for either myself or for Tina. Okay, well, hearing no questions, I'm going to, Tina, if it's okay, I was going to show gallery view. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought while we're in Submittable land, I would just pop over to the actual roster, our gallery of current partners that Tina mentioned earlier. So this is the place that's kind of a database that's accessible to the public, where folks can come and search for teaching artists and teaching art organizations. So here you can kind of, if you're interested in seeing who's currently on the roster, this is a place to come. And this would also be the place that once your application is approved, you will also have a profile here on this site so that members of the public can find information about you and your work. So just wanted to kind of quickly share that is available here. You can find the link to this gallery on the Creative Advantage website if you're interested in browsing and taking a look.
Thanks, Lizzy.
Thank you.
So we threw tons of info at you. Did we lose some folks? We might have. Everybody still here? The only other things I was going to say is that, you know, the application closes on the 7th. And really, if anybody needs support thinking about how to present any of their work, if you need support with a learning plan or an outline or something like that, I'm completely available to help. What are y'all thinking? Do you have any questions at this time, or? And we can stop recording, I think, Lizzie.